Dr. Emily Brooks had been working late in her lab on Nexus 7, cataloging samples from a recent expedition. The trade station was usually quiet at this hour, with most of the diverse alien species that called it home already retired to their quarters. Emily liked the peace. It gave her time to think, to process the incredible variety of life she encountered every day as a xenobiologist. That peace shattered when she heard the screaming. The sound was high-pitched and desperate, unlike anything Emily had heard before. It seemed to be coming from the lower cargo bay, several levels below her lab. For a moment, she froze, her hand hovering over the communication panel. Should she call security? But the scream came again, more urgent this time, and Emily made her decision. She grabbed her emergency medical kit and ran. The corridors blurred past her as she sprinted toward the cargo lifts. Her heart pounded in her chest, and she could hear her own breathing loud in her ears. Whatever was happening down there, someone needed help. That was all that mattered. When the lift doors finally opened on the cargo level, Emily nearly stumbled in her haste to get out. The screaming was louder here, echoing off the metal walls. She followed the sound through rows of stacked containers until she found the source. A small creature, no bigger than a human toddler, was trapped inside a cargo container. Through the transparent panel, Emily could see it clearly. The child looked like it was made of living crystal, its body composed of delicate, translucent segments that caught the overhead lights and threw rainbow patterns across the walls. It was a Valachian, one of the insectoid species that traded frequently on Nexus 7. But something was terribly wrong. The container's atmospheric seal had been damaged, and toxic gases were venting into the chamber where the child was trapped. The little Valachian was clawing at the panel, its movements becoming weaker with each passing second. Emily didn't hesitate. She didn't think about the expensive equipment she might damage or the protocols she was supposed to follow. She didn't even think about her own safety. All she saw was a child dying, and that was something she could not allow. She grabbed a maintenance tool from a nearby rack and smashed it into the emergency release panel. Sparks flew, and alarms began to wail throughout the cargo bay. The container seal hissed and popped, and Emily wrenched the door open with her bare hands, ignoring the burn of superheated metal against her palms. The child fell forward into her arms, surprisingly light despite its crystalline appearance. Emily pulled away from the venting gases and laid it gently on the floor. She had no idea how to treat a Valachian, but she knew the basics of emergency care. She checked for a breathing, for a pulse, for any sign of life. The child's chest was moving, barely. Emily tilted his head back, trying to clear its airway, and watched as the dull, cloudy appearance of its crystalline body slowly began to clear. Color returned to the segments, and the child coughed, a sound like wind chimes of a storm. Emily sat back on her heels, relief flooding through her. The child would live. That was when she heard the footsteps. A tall Valachian came around the corner of the cargo containers, moving with a distinctive clicking gait of his species. He was easily 7 feet tall, his crystalline body a deep amber color that spoke of age and authority. His compound eyes, multifaceted and glowing with an inner light, fixed on Emily and the child at her feet. For a long moment, nobody moved. Emily suddenly became aware of the alarm still blaring, the sparking remains of the emergency panel, and the fact that she was sitting on the floor of a cargo bay, covered in soot and burn marks, holding a Valachian child she just pulled from a damaged container. The tall Valachian knelt beside his daughter, his movements careful and precise. He examined her quickly, and Emily saw something like relief pass across his alien features. Then he turned those glowing eyes on Emily. "You saved my daughter," he said. His voice was surprisingly gentle, with the musical quality that came from Valachian vocal structures. He'd adopted a human name for trade purposes, calling himself David. "I will inform the council." Emily nodded, still trying to catch her breath. "Is she going to be okay?" "I don't know much about Valachian physiology, but I did what I could." David touched his daughter's crystalline face with something that looked like tenderness. "She will recover, thanks to you, but you do not understand. I must inform the council immediately. This changes everything." Before Emily could ask what he meant, David carefully lifted his daughter and stood. He looked down at Emily one more time, and she thought she saw something like sadness in those alien eyes. "Wait for the security escort," he said. They will come for you soon." Then he was gone, disappearing into the maze of cargo containers with his daughter cradled in his arms. Emily sat there on the cold floor, confusion replacing her earlier adrenaline rush. Wait for security? Had she done something wrong? She'd saved a child's life. Surely that wasn't against station regulations, even if she damaged some equipment in the process. But 3 hours later, when two stern-faced security officers appeared at her lab and politely but firmly requested that she accompany them to the Valakian embassy sector, Emily began to worry. They wouldn't tell her what this was about, only that Ambassador David had requested her presence immediately. As they walked through the station's gleaming corridors toward the embassy wing, Emily's mind raced. What had she done? Was there some Valakian custom she'd violated? Some protocol about touching their children? She'd heard that some alien species had very strict rules about physical contact. The Valakian embassy loomed before them, its entrance marked by crystalline sculptures that seemed to grow directly from the walls. The security officers left her at the door with a nod, and Emily stepped inside alone, her heart pounding once again. She had no idea that her simple act of kindness had just triggered an ancient alien law that would change her life forever. The interior of the Valakian embassy was unlike anything Emily had seen before. The walls seemed to be made of the same crystalline material as the Valakians themselves, glowing softly with an internal light that shifted through subtle shades of blue and green. The air was cooler here and slightly humid, adjusted to Valakian comfort levels. David was waiting for her in a large circular chamber. His daughter sat beside him on a low bench, looking much healthier than she had just hours ago. The child's crystalline body was clear and bright, no longer clouded by the toxic gases. When she saw Emily, she made a soft chiming sound that might have been happiness. Emily smiled at the child, relieved to see her doing well. But her smile faded when she looked at David. The tall Valakian stood with a formal rigidity that made her nervous. "Please sit," David said, gesturing to a chair that had clearly been brought in specifically for her. Everything else in the room was designed for Valakian physiology. Emily sat, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. "Is your daughter all right? I was worried that I might have done something wrong. I don't really know Valakian medicine." "My daughter is well because of you," David said, "and that is why we must talk. Dr. Brooks, I have not been entirely honest with you about who I am. My full designation is High Arbiter David, third of the Crystal Council, keeper of the Northern Settlements. I am not simply a trader on this station. I am one of the ruling members of Valakian society." Emily felt her stomach drop. She'd saved the daughter of someone incredibly important. No one to security had escorted her here. "I'm glad I could help," Emily said carefully. "But I have to say, I'm confused about why I'm here. Did I break some kind of protocol?" David tilted his head, his compound eyes reflecting the soft light of the chamber. "You broke no protocol, but you have triggered something far more significant. An ancient law that has governed Valakian society for thousands of years. We call it Veshkala. In your language, it would translate roughly to life debt." "Life debt," Emily repeated. "When a Valakian child is saved from certain death, as my daughter was, a sacred bond is formed. The child's family becomes bound to the one who saved them. It is our oldest law, written into our very culture and biology. My daughter lives because of your actions. Therefore, according to Veshkala, I and my family now belong to you." Emily stared at him, trying to process what she'd just heard. "I'm sorry, what? Belong to me? What does that mean?" David's voice remained calm and measured, as if he were explaining a simple mathematical equation. "It means exactly what it sounds like. My daughter Anna, my spouse, and my entire bloodline are now bound in servitude to you. We will serve you in whatever capacity you require until you choose to release us or until you die. This is Veshkala. This is our law." For a moment, Emily couldn't speak. She felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. "You're telling me that because I saved your daughter, you're now my slaves?" "That is correct." Emily shot to her feet, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. "No, absolutely not. I don't want slaves. I don't believe in slavery. This is insane." David remained seated, perfectly still. "Your beliefs do not change our law. My daughter was dying. Without your intervention, she would have perished within minutes. You gave her life. Under Veshkala, we now owe you everything. I don't want everything. Emily's voice rose, echoing off the crystalline walls. I just wanted to help a child who was in trouble. That's what anyone would do. That's what humans do. We help each other. We don't expect payment, and we certainly don't expect people to become our property. But we are not human, David said quietly. We are Valakian, and this is who we are. Emily paced back and forth, her mind racing. This couldn't be happening. She'd saved a child's life, done the right thing, and now she was being told she owned an entire family? An important family, no less, with connections throughout Valakian society? There has to be a way out of this, Emily said. Some kind of loophole. I can just refuse, right? I can say no thank you and walk away. You can refuse, David acknowledged, but it will not change anything. Veshkala is not negotiable. It is not a choice. It simply is. My family and I will follow you regardless of whether you accept or refuse. We are bound by law and by honor. To do anything else would be unthinkable. Emily stopped pacing and looked at him. What happens if I leave the station? What if I go back to Earth? We will follow. What if I order you to stay here and forget about this? We cannot. The debt must be paid. Your orders and other matters we will follow, but we cannot abandon Veshkala. It would be like asking you to stop breathing. Emily sank back into her chair, her head in her hands. This was a nightmare. She'd come to Nexus 7 to study alien life, to learn and grow as a scientist. She'd never wanted power over anyone, least of all an entire family of sentient beings. Before she could say anything else, the door to the chamber opened. Station Administrator Williams walked in, followed by two Valakian officials Emily didn't recognize. Williams was smiling broadly, which immediately made Emily more nervous. Dr. Brooks, Williams said, his voice booming with false cheerfulness. I've just heard the wonderful news. Congratulations on this incredible honor. Honor? Emily looked at him incredulously. You think this is an honor? Williams pulled up another human-sized chair and sat down beside her. Of course it is. Do you have any idea how significant this is? A high-ranking Valakian official and his family bound to a human? The diplomatic implications alone are extraordinary. This could open up entirely new avenues of cooperation between Earth and the Valakian collective. I don't care about diplomatic implications, Emily said. I'm not going to own people just because it's politically convenient. One of the Valakian officials stepped forward. His crystalline body was a deep purple, indicating advanced age. Dr. Brooks, perhaps I can clarify the situation. I am Counselor Thomas, legal advisor to the Crystal Council. What High Arbiter David has told you is entirely accurate. Veshkala is protected under the Galactic Concordat of Cultural Sovereignty. No member species can interfere with the cultural practices of another, provided those practices are applied to their own people. But this involves me, Emily protested. I'm human. I'm not part of Valakian culture. You became part of it the moment you saved Anna's life, Thomas said. The law is clear, and it is binding under galactic law. You cannot refuse it, and we cannot rescind it. Administrator Williams leaned forward. Dr. Brooks, Emily, please think about this rationally. You don't have to think of it as owning slaves. Think of it as having dedicated assistants. High Arbiter David is one of the most brilliant minds in Valakian society. His expertise in quantum biology alone is worth more than every research grant you could apply for in your lifetime. And he's offering to work for you, to help you, to serve your scientific goals. I didn't ask for this, Emily said, but her voice was weaker now. The reality of the situation was settling in. If what they were saying was true, if galactic law really did protect this practice, then she had no way out. David spoke again, his voice still gentle. Dr. Brooks, I understand this is difficult for you. Your species values individual freedom above almost everything else. But please understand, this is not difficult for us. This is our way. My daughter is alive because of you. Every breath she takes, every moment of joy she will experience in her long life is a gift you gave her. How could we not dedicate ourselves to you in return? It would be the deepest dishonor imaginable. Emily looked at little Anna, who was watching her with those multifaceted eyes. The child was alive and healthy, playing quietly with what looked like a crystalline puzzle. She would grow up, have experiences, maybe have children of her own someday, all because Emily had acted on instinct and compassion. But at what cost? Emily spent 3 sleepless nights trying to figure a way out of the situation. She consulted with every human lawyer on Nexus 7, sent urgent messages to Earth's diplomatic corps, and even reached out to other alien species who might understand loopholes in galactic law. Every answer was the same. The Cultural Sovereignty Concordat was ironclad. What happened between Valakians and those who triggered their cultural laws was beyond outside interference. On the 4th day, Emily made her decision. She would leave. If she couldn't legally break the bond, she would simply put distance between herself and David's family. She requested an immediate transfer to a research station on the other side of the galaxy, packed her belongings, and booked passage on the next transport ship. She didn't tell David. She didn't say goodbye. She simply left her quarters before dawn and headed for the docking bay. But when she arrived at her assigned transport, David was already there. He stood beside the boarding ramp with his entire family. His spouse, an elegant Valakian named Jennifer, held little Anna's hand. Behind them were 3 large cargo containers. Emily stopped dead in her tracks. "What are you doing here?" David bowed his head slightly. "Going where you go. We are bound to you, Dr. Brooks. Distance does not change this." "I didn't tell you I was leaving," Emily said, frustration clear in her voice. "You did not need to. We have been monitoring your movements as is appropriate for those in service. When you booked transport, we did the same." Emily looked at the cargo containers. "What's in those?" "Our possessions. I have resigned my position as High Arbiter. I have sold our estate on the Valakian homeworld. We have liquidated all assets that cannot travel with us. We are ready to serve you wherever you require." Emily felt the deck seem to shift beneath her feet. "You resigned? You sold your home? David, you're one of the most important people in your entire civilization." "My daughter is more important than any position," David said simply. "And my honor is worth more than any estate. You gave my child life. What is a job or a house compared to that?" Little Anna pulled away from her mother's hand and walked up to Emily. The child barely came up to Emily's waist. She looked up at those glowing compound eyes and made a series of chiming sounds. Jennifer translated softly. "She asks why the kind human will not accept us. She asks if she did something wrong. If you are angry because she got trapped in the container." Emily knelt down so she was at eye level with Anna. The child's crystalline face was impossible to read by human standards, but there was something in the way she held herself that spoke of uncertainty and fear. "No, sweetie," Emily said gently. "You didn't do anything wrong. None of this is your fault." Anna chimed again, and Jennifer translated. "Then why won't you let us stay with you? Don't you like us?" Emily felt her heart break a little. She looked up at David, at Jennifer, at the 2 other Valakians she now realized were extended family members. They had given up everything. Not because she'd asked them to, not because she demanded it, but because their law and their culture gave them no other choice. Emily boarded the transport. David and his family boarded behind her. The pattern repeated itself over the next 2 months. Emily transferred to a research station near the Outer Rim. David and his family arrived 3 days later, having taken a faster ship. Emily requested a posting on a small outpost moon. The Valakian family secured quarters in the same complex. Every morning, David would appear at her door, asking what service he could provide. Every morning, Emily would tell him to leave her alone. Every morning, he would bow respectfully and retreat, only to return the next day. Other humans on the stations where Emily stayed found the situation fascinating. Some thought it was wonderful that she had such dedicated help. Others were uncomfortable with the power dynamic, but no one could offer a solution. The Valakians were choosing this, after all. No one was forcing them to follow Emily across the galaxy. Emily filed formal complaints with the Galactic Council. She hired lawyers from 5 different species. She even attempted to petition the Valakian government directly to release David from his obligation. Every attempt failed. The lawyers all said the same thing. Cultural sovereignty was absolute. The Valakian government response was brief and formal. Veshkala was beyond their authority to overturn. It was older than their government, deeper than their laws. One night, Emily sat in her quarters on the remote outpost and watched Anna play in the common area outside through her window. The child had adapted remarkably well to the nomadic lifestyle. She played with other alien children, learned new languages, and seemed genuinely happy. But Emily noticed that Anna often looked toward her window, as if hoping to see Emily watching. Jennifer joined her daughter, and Emily saw them have a conversation in the musical chiming language of the Valakians. Then Anna looked directly at Emily's window, and even through the distance and the alien features, Emily could see the sadness there. Jennifer's voice came through on Emily's communicator. She requested a channel. Emily almost didn't answer, but something made her tap the accept button. "Dr. Brooks," Jennifer said quietly, "I know you can hear me. Anna asked me again tonight why you won't accept us. She is beginning to think she is not worthy, that her life was not worth saving." Emily closed her eyes. "That's not true. Of course her life was worth saving. Then why do you reject us so completely? We have given up everything to honor the debt we owe you. We ask for nothing but the chance to serve. Yet you treat us as if we are a burden you wish to discard, because you shouldn't have to give up everything." Emily said, her voice rising. "You had lives. David had an important job, and I had a home. I took all that away from you." "No," Jennifer said firmly. "You gave Anna her life. Everything else is just details. Do you not understand? In Valakian culture, family is everything. Our children are our future, our hope, our reason for existing. You saved that. You saved everything that matters. The rest is just noise." Emily didn't respond. She couldn't. She sat there in the darkness of her quarters, watching the crystalline woman comfort her daughter outside, and felt the weight of responsibility crushing down on her. That night, Emily began to research. Not galactic law this time. Not human rights or cultural sovereignty. She dove deep into Valakian culture itself, studying their history, their traditions, their values. She read everything she could find about Veshkala, going back thousands of years to the origin of the practice. She read about Valakian biology, about their complex social structures, about the way their entire civilization was built around concepts of debt, honor, and reciprocity. She learned that Valakians literally could not conceive of receiving a gift without repaying it. It was wired into their psychology as deeply as breathing. For 3 weeks, Emily barely slept. She filled her quarters with data files and historical texts. She learned the Valakian language, at least enough to read their legal documents in the original form. And slowly, deep in the ancient texts, she found something. It was a single line in a document over 4,000 years old. A footnote to a footnote about Veshkala. It said that the life debt could be considered fulfilled if the debt holder determined it had been paid in equal measure. Emily read the line over and over. Paid in equal measure. The text didn't elaborate on what that meant. It didn't give examples or criteria. It simply stated that if the person whom the debt was owed declared it paid in equal measure, the Veshkala bond would be dissolved. Emily sat back in her chair, her mind racing. This was it. This was the loophole she'd been searching for. But the more she thought about it, the more complex the question became. What would equal measure look like? How could David and his family possibly pay her back for saving Anna's life in a way that Emily would consider equal? Then, slowly, an idea began to form. It was radical. It would require turning the entire concept of Veshkala on its head. But it might work. More than that, it might actually turn this impossible situation into something meaningful. Emily stood up and walked to her window. David was out there, as he always was, waiting patiently for any command she might give. For 2 months, he had followed her across the galaxy without complaint. He had given up everything without hesitation, and he had never once wavered in his commitment to serve. If they wanted to serve her, Emily thought, then she would let them, but she would do it her way, the human way. She would give them commands they had never expected. She would demand service that would challenge everything they thought they knew about Veshkala. And maybe, just maybe, she would find a way to free them by showing them a different kind of debt entirely. Emily opened her door and stepped outside. David immediately stood and approached, bowing his head. "Dr. Brooks, how may I serve you?" Emily took a deep breath. We need to talk. All of you, I have an idea. Emily gathered David and his family in the common area of the outpost. Jennifer was there, along with Anna and two other Valakians Emily had learned were David's brother and sister. They all stood at attention, waiting for her commands with that patient stillness that had become so familiar over the past months. Emily paced in front of them, organizing her thoughts. She'd spent weeks planning this moment, but now that it was here, she felt nervous. What she was about to do had never been attempted before. It might not even work. All right, Emily began. You keep telling me that you're bound to serve me, that you have to follow my commands. Is that correct? Yes, Dr. Brooks. David said immediately, we are yours to command. Good. Then here's my first command. I want you to teach me everything you know about Valakian biology and quantum crystalline structures. David tilted his head, his compound eyes reflecting confusion. You wish to learn from us? That's what I said. You're a high arbiter, which means you're one of the leading experts on your own species. I'm a xenobiologist who knows almost nothing about how Valakians actually work on a cellular level. So teach me. That's my command. David exchanged glances with his family. Of course, if that is what you wish. When would you like to begin? Right now, Emily said, and not just you. Jennifer, I know you specialize in crystalline resonance patterns before you came here. I want you to teach me about that too. I want detailed lessons, proper academic instruction. I want you to treat me like a student at your finest universities. Jennifer bowed her head. It will be done. Emily turned to David's brother, whose human name was Robert. You worked in architecture, didn't you? Designing living structures. Yes, Dr. Brooks. I design habitat modules for colony worlds. Perfect. I'm going to need that expertise. Emily pulled out her data pad and projected a holographic image into the air between them. It showed a sprawling complex of interconnected buildings. This is my second command. I want you to help me design and build a xenological research institute right here on Nexus 7. The Valakians stared at the projection. David spoke carefully. A research institute? That would be a massive undertaking. It would require funding, permits, collaboration with station authorities. I know. That's why I need your help. You have connections throughout the galaxy. You know how to navigate bureaucracy. You understand how to bring different species together for collaborative projects. So that's what I'm commanding you to do. Help me build this. David's crystalline form seemed to shimmer with confusion. But Dr. Brooks, this would benefit you professionally. This would advance your career, your research goals. You are asking us to help you succeed. Yes, that's exactly what I'm asking. But we are supposed to serve you, to perform tasks you require. This feels more like collaboration. Emily smiled. It is collaboration. But here's the thing, David. You told me I could command you to do anything, right? Anything at all? Within reason, yes. Then I'm commanding you to work with me as equals. I'm ordering you to share your knowledge freely, not as servants providing information to a master, but as colleagues contributing to a shared goal. I'm demanding that you challenge my ideas when you think I'm wrong, that you bring your own expertise and creativity to the table. That's my command. The Valakian stood in stunned silence. Finally, David spoke. I do not understand. You are commanding us to not act like servants. Exactly. You said you have to follow my commands. Well, I'm commanding you to be my partners, my colleagues, my equals in this research. Can you do that? David looked at his family. They seemed to communicate something without words, their crystalline bodies shifting through subtle color changes. Finally, David turned back to Emily. This is highly irregular. I am not certain this is how Veshkala is meant to function. Do you have a choice? Emily asked. I'm the debt holder. These are my commands. You have to follow them, don't you? A sound came from David that might have been a laugh. It was like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. You are a very strange human, Dr. Brooks. But yes, you are correct. We must obey. If you command us to work as equals, then we will work as equals. Good. Then let's get started. The next morning, Emily's education began. David set up a full curriculum on Valakian biology, starting with the basics and gradually moving into complex topics like crystalline cellular regeneration and quantum entanglement in neural structures. He was a patient teacher, but also demanding. When Emily didn't understand something, he made her work through the problem herself rather than simply giving her the answer. Jennifer taught her about resonance patterns, showing her how Valakians communicated through subtle vibrations in their crystalline bodies. Emily learned that what she thought was simple language was actually an incredibly complex system of multi-layered information exchange. And in the evenings, Emily worked with Robert on the design for the Research Institute. He showed her how different species had different requirements for living and working spaces, and how to create an environment where everyone could thrive together. But Emily didn't just receive. She taught as well. She showed the Valakians human research methods, human approaches to problem solving. She introduced them to concepts of peer review and open collaboration that were common in human academia, but foreign to the more hierarchical Valakian system. Slowly, something began to change. David started questioning Emily's decisions, not with the deference of a servant, but with the critical eye of a colleague. When she proposed a research methodology he thought was flawed, he told her directly. They would argue, sometimes for hours, until they found a better approach together. Jennifer began bringing her own ideas to their sessions, suggesting new directions for research that Emily hadn't considered. Robert designed sections of the Institute that went beyond Emily's original vision, creating spaces for collaboration she hadn't imagined. Within 3 months, they'd secured preliminary approval from Nexus 7's administration for the Research Institute. Emily's reputation as a xenobiologist, combined with David's connections and diplomatic skills, opened doors that would have remained closed to either of them alone. Within 6 months, construction began. The Institute would be a first of its kind, a place where researchers from dozens of species could work together, sharing knowledge and resources without the usual barriers of political or cultural differences. Anna started attending a new multi-species school that had recently opened on Nexus 7. Emily watched as a young Valakian thrive in the diverse environment, making friends with children from a dozen different worlds. The child who had nearly died in that cargo container was now bright and curious, asking questions about everything she encountered. One evening, nearly 8 months after Emily had given her first commands, she sat in the partially completed institute with David, reviewing the day's construction progress. They'd been working for 12 hours straight, and both were exhausted. "You know," David said thoughtfully, "when Veshkala first bound us, I expected to spend my life performing menial tasks, carrying things, running errands, perhaps serving as a bodyguard. That is how life debts have typically been fulfilled throughout our history. And instead, you're helping build a research institute and publishing groundbreaking papers on cross-species cellular biology," Emily said with a smile. "Yes, it is strange. I have been thinking about this a great deal. What you have done, it is unprecedented. You took a law meant to create servitude and turned it into something else entirely. I just asked you to work with me instead of for me. But that is the genius of it," David said. "You understood something about Veshkala that even we did not fully grasp. The law says we must serve you, but it never defined what service meant. You defined it in a way that honored both your values and ours." Emily looked around the Institute, at the half-built laboratories and lecture halls. "Can I tell you something? I was terrified when this all started. I felt like I'd been trapped, forced into a situation I never wanted. I spent months trying to escape. I know, we all knew. But somewhere along the way, something changed. I stopped seeing you as an obligation and started seeing you as colleagues, as friends. Anna asked me about my research now, and I love explaining it to her. Jennifer and I have coffee every morning and talk about our latest findings. I don't feel trapped anymore." David's crystalline form shimmered with warm colors. "You have given us something as well, Dr. Brooks. I told you that I resigned as High Arbiter, gave up my position and status. I thought I was sacrificing everything to fulfill Veshkala. But the truth is, I am happier now than I ever was in that position. The hierarchy, the rigid structures, the endless political maneuvering, I realize now that I never enjoyed any of it. I did it because it was expected, because it was honorable. And now I spend my days discovering new things, working with brilliant minds from species I barely knew existed. I teach, I learn, I create. This is what I was meant to do. You did not command me into servitude. You freed me to become who I truly am. Emily felt tears prick at her eyes. I think we freed each other. Word of what Emily had done spread throughout Nexus 7 and beyond. Other species watched with fascination as a human and the Valakian family worked together, producing research that neither could have accomplished alone. They saw Anna growing up in a multi-species environment, fluent in 4 languages, comfortable with beings who looked nothing like her. Some Valakians were scandalized. This wasn't how Vesh Kala was supposed to work. The debt holder was meant to command, and the debt-bound were meant to obey. Emily had twisted the law into something unrecognizable, but others saw something different. They saw a human who had found a loophole that no one else had imagined, a way to honor the letter of Valakian law while completely transforming its spirit. Emily hadn't rejected Veshkala. She'd simply commanded the Valakians to be free, and the law itself had forced them to obey. 2 years passed like a dream Emily hadn't known she was living. The Research Institute had become one of the most respected facilities in the sector, attracting scientists from across the galaxy. The work she and David's team had accomplished together had revolutionized how different species understood each other's biology. They'd published 17 major papers, developed 3 new medical treatments, and trained over 100 young researchers in cross-species collaboration. Emily stood in her office on a quiet morning, looking out at the main laboratory floor below. David was there, working with a team of human and alien researchers on a new project involving cellular regeneration. Jennifer was giving a lecture to a group of visiting students from 3 different worlds. Anna, now nearly as tall as Emily, was helping her Uncle Robert design an expansion to the Institute. The message from Earth had arrived the night before. The Global Science Council was offering Emily the position of Director of Xenobiological Studies, one of the most prestigious appointments in human space. It would mean returning to Earth, working with unlimited resources, shaping the future of humanity's understanding of alien life. It was everything Emily had ever wanted in her career. 2 years ago, she would have accepted without hesitation. Now, staring at the message on her datapad, Emily felt nothing but uncertainty. She called David to her office to discuss it. When he arrived, she handed him the pad without a word. He read through the message, his crystalline features impossible to read as always, but Emily had learned to interpret the subtle color shifts in his body. She saw surprise, followed by something that might have been sadness. "This is a remarkable opportunity," David said finally, handing back the pad. "The director position is one of the highest honors Earth can offer scientists. I know. You should accept." Emily looked at him sharply. "Just like that? You think I should go?" David moved to the window, looking down at the laboratory. "Dr. Brooks, Emily, you have accomplished extraordinary things here. But this institute is established now. It can run without you. This opportunity on Earth could allow you to influence xenobiology on a scale we cannot achieve here on Nexus 7. And what about you? What about your family? We would follow, of course. If you go to Earth, we go to Earth. Veshkala binds us to you, wherever you might be." Emily had known he would say that, but hearing it still made her chest tighten. She walked over to stand beside him at the window. "David, I need to tell you something. I found something in the ancient Valakian texts, a clause about Veshkala that I don't think you know about." David turned to look at her. "What kind of clause?" "It says that the life debt can be ended if the debt holder declares it paid in equal measure." Emily pulled up the text on her pad and showed it to him. "I've been thinking about this for months now, about what equal measure might mean." David read the text, his body shifting through colors Emily had learned to associate with deep thought. "I am familiar with this passage. It is ancient, rarely invoked. Because no one ever thinks the debt can be repaid. Because repaying a life is impossible. How can anything equal the gift of existence?" Emily took a deep breath. "I think you repaid it, David. You and your family. The research we've done together has saved lives. Real lives. The regeneration therapy we developed is being used on 12 worlds right now. The cross-species medical database we created has helped doctors treat conditions they never understood before. How many people are alive today because of our work? David was silent for a long moment. Hundreds, perhaps, maybe thousands over time. Your daughter is one life. Our work together has saved hundreds. I'd say that's equal measure, wouldn't you? Emily, what are you saying? Emily turned to face him fully. I'm saying that I'm releasing you from Veshkala. You, Jennifer, Anna, Robert, all of you, the debt is paid. You're free. The colors that washed through David's crystalline body were unlike anything Emily had seen before. It was like watching a sunset and a storm at the same time, beautiful and turbulent. When he spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. You would do this? I should have done it a long time ago. You've given me everything already. You've been my colleague, my teacher, my friend. You've helped me build something amazing. The debt is paid, David. You don't owe me anything anymore. David stood perfectly still for so long that Emily began to worry. Had she made a mistake? Had she misunderstood the ancient text? Then David moved to her desk and sat down in a chair across from where she usually sat. He gestured for her to sit as well. Emily, I need to tell you something that I should have explained a long time ago. Something that most non-Valakians do not understand about Veshkala. Emily sat, her heart pounding. What is it? The life debt can be refused, not by the debt holder, but by the Valakian who owes it. At any point from the very beginning, I could have chosen to walk away. Emily stared at him. What? But you said it was binding. You said it was your law, your culture, that you had no choice. And all of that is true. Veshkala is our law. It is binding. But it is binding because we choose to honor it, not because it is forced upon us. The law exists because every Valakian, when faced with a life debt, chooses to fulfill it. It is who we are, but it is still a choice. Emily felt like the floor had dropped out from under her. You mean this whole time you could have just said no? You could have stayed on the Valakian homeworld, kept your position, lived your life? Yes. Then why did you give up everything? Why did you follow me across the galaxy when I was trying so hard to get away from you? David's colors shifted to warm golds and soft blues. Because my daughter is alive. Because you saved her without thought for yourself, without wanting anything in return. Because in that moment, you showed me what true compassion looks like. How could I walk away from that? How could I not want to know you better? To learn from you, to be part of your life. Emily felt tears running down her face. But I made you give up everything you had. No, Emily, you freed me from everything I thought I had to be. I told you before, I was never happy as High Arbiter. I spent my life in a role that brought me no joy, doing work that felt empty. Then you came along and commanded me to be your equal, to work with you, to create and discover and learn. You gave me permission to be who I truly wanted to be. So, when I release you from the debt, I refuse the release, David said firmly. Just as I could have refused the debt in the beginning, I now refuse to be released from it. Emily laughed through her tears. You're impossible. You know that. I am Valakian. We are a stubborn species. The sound he made was definitely a laugh. Emily, you did not trick our law. You did not find a loophole or manipulate us into servitude. You showed us what Veshkala could truly mean. Not servitude, but partnership. Not obligation, but choice. Not debt, but family. Emily wiped her eyes. Family? Is that not what we have become? Anna calls you Aunt Emily when she thinks you cannot hear. Jennifer considers you her closest friend. Robert asks your advice on everything from architecture to his personal life. And I... David paused, colors shifting. I cannot imagine my life without you in it. Not as a master, not as a debt holder, but as my dearest friend. Emily stood up and walked around the desk. She did something she'd never done before. She hugged David. His crystalline body was cool and hard against her, but she felt him return the embrace with surprising gentleness. I can't imagine my life without you either, Emily said. Any of you. When they finally separated, David gestured to the data pad still sitting on the desk. So what will you tell Earth? Emily picked up the pad and looked at the message one more time. Director of Xenobiological Studies. Unlimited resources. The chance to shape humanity's future. It was an incredible opportunity, but it wasn't what she wanted anymore. I'm going to tell them no, Emily said. I have work to do here. We have work to do here. The Institute is just getting started. We've barely scratched the surface of what we can accomplish together. You are certain? This is a great honor they offer you. I'm certain. Besides, if I went to Earth, you'd just follow me, and then we'd have to start all over building facilities and gathering researchers. Much easier to just stay here where everything is already set up. David laughed again, that wind chime sound that Emily had grown to love. A practical decision. Very human of you. Speaking of which, I have a command for you. David straightened slightly, an old habit. Yes. Stop calling me Dr. Brooks. We've worked together for 2 years. We're family, like you said. Call me Emily. As you command, Emily. The message to Earth was short and polite. Emily thanked him for the incredible honor, but explained that her current work was too important to leave. She recommended several other qualified candidates and promised to consult with the council whenever they needed her expertise. The response came back within hours. They understood, though they were disappointed. The position would remain open if she changed her mind. Emily knew she wouldn't. That evening, the entire institute gathered for their weekly dinner. It had become a tradition, all the researchers and their families coming together to share food and stories. Anna sat next to Emily, talking excitedly about a project she was working on in school. Jennifer and Robert debated the merits of different architectural styles. Human researchers mixed with Valakians, with Andromedans, with species Emily hadn't even known existed 3 years ago. David stood and raised his glass. I would like to propose a toast, he announced, to Emily Brooks, who was offered one of the highest honors Earth can bestow, and turn it down to stay here with us. Everyone cheered. Emily felt her face flush. You told them? Of course I told them. They deserve to know what you sacrificed to continue our work. I didn't sacrifice anything, Emily said. I chose what mattered most. Anna tugged on her sleeve. Does this mean you're staying forever? Emily looked around the table, at all the faces watching her. Her family, she realized, not bound by law or debt, but by choice, by love. Yeah, kid, Emily said, pulling Anna into a hug. I'm staying. The galaxy had watched a human do the impossible. She'd taken an ancient law meant to create servitude and transformed it into partnership. She commanded beings to be free, and they'd obeyed. She'd found a family in the most unlikely place. And in doing so, she taught everyone watching that the most powerful command anyone could give was a command to choose your own path, to be your true self, to find joy in collaboration rather than hierarchy. Humanity had given the galaxy many things over the years, but perhaps the greatest gift was this simple truth, that freedom, real freedom, comes not from the absence of bonds, but from the choice to honor them. David was right. Emily hadn't tricked Veshkala. She'd shown them all what it truly meant.